witness the impact of inequalities on communities of color? Can we break through silos of race, class, and gender? Only together can we bridge communities. Join us to bridge the gap. Build NYC and TikTok present the Women Bridging Community Speaker Series, empowering the next generation of Latinx and Black women to successfully navigate spaces of power and privilege. Join Sophia Hernandez as we celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month.
I have been living in this country 12 months, and I have to learn English so fast, and I learned how to present in front of everyone, and it's so hard. Our company is called Ijabi, and Ijabi means positive in Arabic.
And it's a t-shirt, and it has positive messages.
The positive messages is about immigration, racism, and women's rights.
Our product is for everyone. But we want teenagers to buy our product because they mostly told to listen more than speaking, and we want them to speak.
You have to have a lot of patience and perseverance because a lot of times things is not really going to go exactly how you thought it was going to go.
Bridging communities, empowering the next generation of Latinx and Black women. Connect, collaborate, take action. Hi everyone, I'm Shamika Alphonse, Regional Executive Director for Build NYC. Thank you for joining us for the inaugural event of our Women Bridging Community Speaker Series. We're so excited about the opportunity to introduce our female students and the greater community to dynamic women who are exceptional leaders in their fields. We want our students to know that they too can successfully navigate spaces of privilege and power with confidence and skill, no matter their skin color or zip code. Build is a nonprofit that uses the power of entrepreneurship to ignite the potential of youth, equipping them with skills for academic, life, career success. Through the process of learning about design thinking and starting a business, our students learn to tap into their creativity, solve problems, gain critical digital literacy skills, and become effective communicators. We want our students to be ready for the world of work and the challenges of life. Build serves students nationwide with offices in New York, the Bay Area, the Los Angeles area, Boston, and Washington, D.C. A very special shout out to our students and school partners joining us from around the country. Achieving our mission through such rich and inspiring programming is made possible thanks to the generosity and employee engagement of our corporate partners. We are thrilled to have TikTok, our newest sponsor, as today's Fireside Chat sponsor. Diversity is what TikTok is. Its platform aims to inspire creativity and bring joy. It would not be what it is today without its rich and diverse community. TikTok's Latinx community is a powerhouse on the platform. The Latina, Latino, and Hispanic hashtags combined have more than 31 billion views, which shows this is where the community is showing up, telling their stories, and connecting with each other in a meaningful way. As we celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month, it is so fitting to have them as a partner. Thanks again, TikTok. It is now my pleasure to welcome Build NYC's Senior Program Manager and our MC for today, Cindy Pineda, to the virtual stage.
Thank you, Shamika, so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us in this enriching conversation today. My name is Cindy Pineda. I'm the Senior Program Manager at Build, and I'm also your host and moderator for today's event. So I'll try to keep it as fun, as engaging for you as possible today. It is an honor to be here sharing this space with you all and sharing just really briefly about why we're here and a little bit about my story. So like I said, my name is Cindy Pineda. I am born and raised in Los Angeles, California. My mother is from Mexico. My dad is from El Salvador. My first language was Spanish. I'm the oldest of three. I have two younger, amazing, beautiful sisters. They're still my baby sisters. During high school, I didn't really have the mindset or the proper guidance for any post-secondary plans. Unfortunately, the neighborhood that I grew up in, there was a lot of gang activity around. There wasn't a lot of positivity around. And so somehow, some way, I got sucked into that environment. Luckily, though, towards my about my senior year in high school, I met a really wonderful mentor who really believed in me and invested in me. And I also was involved in dance. I did ballet, salsa, merengue, hip hop. So these clubs and these people around me and these adults really supported me and said, hey, college is an option. And so I heard about something called community college, did not know what that was. I remember going to orientation, trying to figure out what that was like. And to my surprise, felt a little discouraged, right? Because my academics weren't up to par. And so I felt very just like I didn't belong in a college setting. But again, luckily, I think I found my village and my support system of people who were like, you can do it. And looking back at all the sacrifices that my parents did coming into this country, really motivated. And I said, hey, I have two younger siblings that are looking up to me, and I have the opportunities in this country to really give it a go. So I'm not going to give up. No me voy a vencer. And so I enrolled in a community college. It took 3 years to transfer. I remember visiting a friend at the University of California, Berkeley, a younger, friend who I considered a little sister, and I fell in love with the campus. And I said, I am going to transfer to the University of California, Berkeley. I came back and told people that, and of course, there's always those people that try to discourage you. And I just said, well, watch me go. I will get there. And guess what? I ended up transferring to the University of California, Berkeley, and I am now an alum. Go Bears. Shortly after that, I moved to DC to work on policy and work on the White House. I work for nonprofits and youth education programs. I did a little bit of traveling and youth development work in Colombia, which inspired me to pursue my master's in education at the New York University, so NYU. So I'm a proud graduate of UC Berkeley and New York University, and here I am today with you all, in front of you all, telling you a little bit about my story today. So today, this month is National Latino Heritage Month, and this is a period from September 15th to October 15th in the United States, where we recognize and honor the contributions and influence of Latinx Americans to the history, culture, and achievements that they've done for us here. It pays tribute to the generations of Latinx Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our nation and society. The celebration starts in the middle of the month. Why? As opposed to the end, because on the 15th marks the Independence Day of 5 Latin American countries: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Mexico, Chile, and Belize follow shortly after on the 16th, 18th, and the 21st. Today we focus on highlighting and elevating the voices of women everywhere, young, old, everyone in between, but in particular, influential Latina women in our history. They're revolutionaries and that have shattered the barriers, have proven time and time again that sí se puede, which is a term that was coined by Latina civil rights activist Dolores Huerta. These women have made strides in civil rights, politics, entertainment, and even gone to space. Women like Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Lola Rodriguez Tio, who wrote the original lyrics of Puerto Rico's national anthem, Felicitas Mendez, the Latina who fought to desegregate the school system, a Latina author who was the first person from Latin America to win a Nobel Prize. Latinas have also been the first to help farm workers receive U.S. labor rights, first female general surgeons, and also all-time greatest female golfers. So today, this leaves no exception to the incredible Latina you will meet and hear from today. And with that, I will let you all meet her and pass it over to Hector Diaz. But before I do and give them the stage, I'll encourage you all to please submit some questions as they're speaking so I can go ahead and ask your questions on your behalf towards the end of their conversation. And I hope you guys enjoy this enriching conversation, take notes, and I hope you guys walk out with something really inspiring today from meeting Sophia Hernandez. Thank you all.
All right, am I on?
You are on, Hector. Take the floor.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate the introduction and the inspiring story. I think that's a great story for all of us to hear. Hi, everyone. My name is Hector. I'm excited to be here today. I work for SC Johnson. I'm the Director of Sustainability there. And I have about 20 years of experience with SC Johnson, where I spent time in different finance, supply chain, and sustainability positions. I'm joined here today with my longtime friend and head of marketing at TikTok, Sophia Hernandez. Sophia, thanks for joining us and for sharing your story. Can we start this conversation by maybe just you sharing a little bit about your background and some of the different work experiences that you've had to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sophia Hernandez, and Chamika and Cindy, thank you so much for the intros, and Cindy, thanks for sharing your story. I think it's really important, and I speak about this a lot and write about it a lot, for Latinas and Latinos to see people like them succeed and see people like them at the top. It's very much that if you can see it, you can be it mentality. So my story is something that I used to hide and not kind of want to talk about, because when I entered corporate America, there weren't a lot of people like me, and I felt a little bit embarrassed that I kind of was the minority when people were talking about skiing and, like going golfing with their parents and stuff like that. I just felt like I didn't fit in, and it took me a few years to really find my way. And it's something I think a lot of us go through. And so that's what I want to talk about today, to both the students that are watching and also just colleagues at different companies at corporate America, so that you understand what it means when you're considering diverse talent, and maybe when they come to the table without a background that you're used to, like Ivy League education, or if they don't have a certain kind of way to speak that you're used to just kind of open your mind and think differently about the people you're bringing on board. So yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, in a low-income Latino neighborhood. I went to school at a school that was mostly like Black and Latino students, and was a great student, and kind of always knew I wanted more. And I was lucky to have parents that really exposed me to different neighborhoods in Chicago. We didn't travel a lot, but I knew, like from reading and just from programs like Build, that there was more out there. And so in college, I decided to study marketing. And it's interesting because I had an aunt that had gone to college, but I didn't really have a lot of role models in that way. And she sat with me one day, and I was like, there's this big booklet, because it wasn't online those days. We actually had like a giant booklet of majors, and I really needed to understand what I was going to be when I grew up. And she walked me through different things. And when she explained marketing, for me, that was it, because I really love people and I really love understanding people. And so that's how I kind of made my choice to join marketing.
Well, like you said, we have similar backgrounds, and you and I studied in Spain together, and we learned about the fact that we had similar backgrounds, that we both came from low-income households, that we both came from Black and brown neighborhoods, and we actually both attended, the same university in Chicago. At DePaul University, is pretty diverse. But when we began our careers, we entered a space where the majority of our colleagues didn't look like us or didn't have backgrounds like us. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like for you to join, a top agency coming out of college, and what was that environment like? How did you adjust?
That's what I alluded to earlier. It was difficult. I felt, when I was in the community with people like me, I felt very confident. I felt kind of very at home. I felt like I knew the space. And then when I joined the advertising space, which is still primarily white, it was intimidating, and it took me a while to really kind of be my whole self at work. So I think like I held back a lot of what I was capable of because I felt that discomfort. I definitely over the years have experienced like various levels of racism and bigotry. I mean, I'm just going to be honest about that because I think it's important for us to tell those stories. You know, I was in a situation where, you know, someone felt like they had the right to tell me, like, we pay your bills, so you have to listen to us. I mean, I've actually gone through things like that. And when you don't have a lot of people like you and senior leadership, you kind of feel alone and you don't really know who to go to or how to handle those situations. And I've been lucky in my life to really have champions and allies that I could go to, whether they were, even if they weren't at my place of employment, they were people that were from programs like Build. I was in programs called Junior Achievement or HLOP, Hispanic Leadership Opportunity Program. And those were people I could go to and share my experience and get advice on how to navigate that system.
So, I agree. I've had that too, where we have outside forces kind of supporting us and mentoring us. Build is a great example of that. But as Latinos, families play a huge role in all of our lives. And for Latinos, it feels like, you know, the dominating force of the way we develop our behaviors, our perceptions, and what leads to decisions that we make come from our families. So what role did your background and your family have in your career?
So much. So I'll talk about the positive and the negative. So the positive is I grew up with a family of activists. So at a very young age, we were marching for people's rights. And so that's always been something that's been instilled in me at my core. So I have a fighting spirit, and I definitely got that from both my mom and my dad. And I think that has helped me navigate corporate America because not only am I very ambitious, but I also just don't back down from a challenge. And so, you know, you have to be really resilient. And I was taught from my family to be really resilient. I also think, though, as Latinos, there are a lot of things that our families instill in us that hinder us from growing. One of those is I had a really hard time leaving home. And so I went to DePaul University, which is close to home. When I decided to study abroad, my dad was completely against it. We had to fight till he finally said yes. I then moved to New York. My mom was against that. I then moved to Paris. Both my parents thought I was crazy. So there hasn't been a lot of encouragement for kind of us to leave home. And I see other cultures do that very quickly. So they go away for college. And when you leave home, you grow so much. I mean, Hector, you remember when we were in Spain, how much we grew, how much we missed our families, how important it was for us to experience that independence. And so whenever I talk to young people, I tell them, if you can leave home, leave. And there's really no excuse for you not to. But there are a lot of obligations we feel as Latinos to our family. And I think actually Cindy, and maybe she can repeat this when she gets back on later, but there was a saying that she had when she guided a student, but basically you help your family more when you leave and you grow and you evolve. You can come back and help them more than if you stay. And I thought that was really kind of strong and important message.
I love that. And I think sometimes Latino women feel that maybe a little bit more than men, but I'm a mama's boy, so my mom definitely wanted me to stay close to home. But I also wanted to pick up on that topic of resiliency, because as you mentioned, in corporate America, you were challenged, you had obstacles. How do you maintain your motivation through hard times, or when you're, when you see setbacks? How do you kind of push through that?
Yeah, it's funny. I just had this conversation with some other really strong women of color. A lot of our successes are bigger than just the next promotion to VP or EVP. Our successes we're basically building a generation of success and wealth that hasn't existed before us. And so people of color don't have the generations and generations of family wealth, of parents who were executives, of even family members that have gone to college. And so for a lot of us who are paving the way, when I move into my next role or the next accomplishment or the next salary rung, it feels like I'm bringing my whole family up with me. And so that can be a lot of pressure. And it also is a huge motivating factor for me. I have 2 little girls. Hector, you have 2 little girls. I think that's a big reason why we keep doing what we're doing. And frankly, growing up as an activist, I'm just tired of spaces being dominated by people who look the same and by one gender. So the activist in me just wants to change. And that's why I'm representing with my RBG mug too.
Nice. Okay, so I think the next question, and Sophia, you and I have been friends for a long time. We have conversations like this all the time. This is the first time we're doing it in front of an audience. I think it was last month I shared some statistics with you that I found interesting, and I'm sure you did too, a little sad as well. 8% of CEOs at the largest companies are women today. So the Fortune 500, there's 37 women that are CEOs. 10 years ago, there was only 15, and 10 years before that, there was only 2. So some progress. Black CEOs are even more rare in the Fortune 500. There are just 4 of them. You're part of the 1% of Latina execs in tech. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to often be the only woman or Latina at the table.
I mean, first of all, when I hear those stats, and I remember you sending me that diagram, it basically had like 500 little heads, and then 37 of them women, and then the few, like I think it was 4 or something as Latinas. And that, in one way, like it makes me feel sad, but mostly it kind of like builds a fire in my belly and makes me want to continue to do something about it. It's an uphill battle. I think whether you're Latina or Black or whatever, I think when you think about intersectionality, there's so many things that go into why this is a challenge. I mean, traditionally, like men have been able to really succeed in these roles because they have someone at home taking care of their kids. Because they, when they landed, it was an easy kind of start in corporate America. When they took their first job, it felt very much like a place where they belonged. And so they didn't have those additional barriers to get over. For me, resilience has been one. Knowing my worth has been core to me kind of climbing the ladder. You will constantly be knocked down. You will constantly be challenged. You'll constantly be talked over. But I know what I bring to the table and have to remind myself of that all the time. Because sometimes it does feel a little deflating, but yeah, I mean, you kind of like, you build up your confidence and you stand in front of the mirror and you remind yourself regularly. So, I think one other thing that I would say is you have to build a support system because you cannot do it alone. Like this journey I've been on has not been just me. Like I go to my family and I cry to them, and like I share these experiences with my siblings, and most of the time they make fun of me, but sometimes they actually have good advice. And I have a core network of friends and women who go through the same thing. I have a core network of like white male allies who are my champions. So this is like, when I talk about this stuff, it's not like anti anything. It's really about finding allies that are going to help you change this space.
So let's talk a little bit more about that as far as it applies to other folks that are trying to make the same journey. What advice do you have for women that are trying to break into tech or grow into an executive role?
So the first question, what advice do I have women who are looking to break into tech? So I was in marketing and advertising for a decade and a half, and then I moved into tech. So late in my career, which isn't common, I decided to change industries. And the way that I did it was, one, networking. So I didn't apply for a job on LinkedIn. I stayed in touch with everyone that I've met from the beginning of my career. And I don't mean just like connecting with them on LinkedIn. Like I've actively kept conversations going, have put effort into like coffees and updating people on what I'm doing. And when I joined Suzy, which was my last role, I actually joined because I had worked with the CEO in a previous role. And so that's kind of how I moved in. So that made the transition easier. It was also very similar to what I was doing in marketing, the tech product. So that was a strong connection. So it's not impossible. I think you need to tap into your network. And I think when you think about going into tech, people think STEM right away, but there's so many, like there's procurement, what you do in tech, there's marketing, what I do. So there are a lot of avenues that you can explore to kind of to change industries or to get into tech. I do think that tech is one of the industries that is going to lead the charge from a DEI perspective. TikTok is doing an amazing job with it. And what was the second question you asked me, Hector?
Around reaching an executive role. How do you grow into an executive role?
Whew. You work hard. You know your worth. I mean, you really have to know your worth because otherwise, you won't really know what role you play within an organization. You have to speak up. You have to speak up not only in meetings and kind of express your point of view, but you have to let people know what you love and show them that kind of you're willing to take on whatever challenges come your way. I mean, I think overall as a leader, I look for people that are very proactive and that are problem solvers.
You've had some big dreams. That's great. And I think big dreams, clear goals make a huge difference. Are those the skill sets, or what are the skill sets that you find most valuable that have really supported, your career, or like you said, folks that you value on your team?
So actually, I'll be a little bit vulnerable. One of the things that I always admired about people that I worked with is I felt like, especially like white men, always had like a certain kind of way that they delivered their messages, right? Like from the tone of voice to the way, the vocabulary they used to how articulate they were. And I think society overall is used to seeing that and hearing that and like attributing that to success. And I kind of knew that. And so with my kind of like whiny voice and like I never considered myself to be incredibly articulate. I know how to get my point across, but like my vocabulary wasn't as expansive as I would like it to be. That's something that I personally was like holding myself back with. And I think this is an important message because it was one day I saw AOC in an interview, and she was just herself, who she is with her Bronx accent, just speaking, but everything she was saying was so important. And I heard it all and I thought, oh my God, she's just being herself. And I've put this image around success that I've personally been holding myself back with. And that kind of opened my eyes to just being your whole self when you're in any situation. And as a leader, that's the kind of environment I like to create. So, like as Latinos, as women of color, you should not be hiding the stuff you did with your family this weekend. If it was like barbecue and eat tacos together and dance, like you need to come to the table and talk about that. Just because everyone else is talking about going to their Hamptons house or skiing in Vail doesn't mean that your story doesn't matter. And the more that we are ourselves in these spaces that are traditionally not built for us, the more they'll change, the faster they'll change. It's because we hold ourselves back and we try to be more like the space versus bringing ourselves into it. And I think that for me is the most important message I would share with anyone.
I love that. And I can, I experienced that as well. And I think we're afraid to be judged, right? And because we're different, because we stand out, because of our backgrounds. So authenticity is critical. And I think people appreciate that when you actually share, your true self to them. So you talked a little bit about in the beginning about, folks building their own teams. and being open to different styles or different backgrounds. What advice do you have for people that are looking to build more diverse teams? What should they be thinking about or doing?
Throw away everything you know about hiring. I mean, especially in the tech space, traditionally all the big companies have been looking for people with Ivy League backgrounds and, you know, certain GPA levels. And the reality is, like, there are so many issues that plague communities of color, and it isn't an even playing field. So you have to open your mind when you're exploring candidates that don't look and don't kind of check all the boxes traditionally on paper. And that takes patience, it takes investment, and listen, the problem is not getting diverse candidates in the door, it's keeping them. Like, I can't tell you how many places I've been that have, like, hired a ton of Black people, hired a ton of Latinos, or any other kind of, you know, like underestimated person. And within a year, they're gone because they didn't feel comfortable in the space, because we didn't have the proper training programs for them. And when people say, and I have this conversation constantly, and when people say, well, we want to hire the best candidates. Well, the best candidates according to what? To these old school kind of ways of hiring. So even at TikTok, we, for some roles, we've completely eliminated the college education requirement, because some of the most brilliant creative folks don't have a college education, and we're missing out on so many talented people. So yeah, throw away the list.
Great. All right. So how about men? What role should we play, you know, as men and allies? How should we get involved in supporting?
This is why I love you, because you ask questions like this.
It's a good question. I mean,
it is a good question. It is a good question. So I think you guys can educate yourselves on how to be better allies. I mean, and this is a big thing in the community right now. Like, men and privileged people are relying on underestimated people to teach them how to be better allies and champions. It's not our job to teach you. It's your job to teach you. So, so do the work, read books, mentor people, ask them how you can be a better ally, what you can do to support, and random acts of kindness. Like, I have, you know, an amazing champion, and I'm going to say his name because he's fantastic, Anthony Onesto, who's a white man, who has constantly championed me publicly in spaces, has nominated me for awards. Like, those are the types of things you can do to help people and help give them visibility. Hi, Cindy.
That's our cue.
No? Okay.
Okay.
If you want to finish it off, please do. This is, I mean, I think I speak for everyone. I wish there was a reaction emoji just to be like, yes, see, applause. I mean, everything you said was incredibly powerful.
Hector, I have a question for you.
Okay, shoot. Yeah.
So because we have similar kind of experiences, what advice would you give your younger self, since we're talking to so many students? Like, looking back, you've been really successful in your career as well. So what advice would you give your younger self?
So I think, you know, some of what you alluded to is important at an early stage, and having big dreams, and you know, not limiting yourself to the opportunities that are out there. But you also have to have some goals, right? Some goals set aside so you can kind of continue to move forward. I think for me, you know, I shared in my brief background that with SC Johnson, I've been there more than 20 years, but I've had roles in finance, in supply chain, and now in sustainability. When I went to school, I never thought that I would move from finance to sustainability. So, but I stayed flexible. I stayed open-minded, and I let the opportunities that I was opening the door with my performance guide me to where my passion was. And I discovered that sustainability and the environment and helping people is what I love. So stay flexible, stay open-minded, set clear goals.
I love it. Cool. Cindy, do we want to move into Q&A?
Yes, absolutely. And just kind of just chiming in again, thanking you both, Hector and Sophia, for just really sharing, your guys' friendship and that bond you have, and as both being Latino folks. I think I can again speak for everyone when it's just like, yes, I could relate, right? Being Latina, I was like, yes, right? And I didn't get to go too much into my story, but you asked earlier, the best advice I got from someone is home will always be home, right? It's not going anywhere, right? Wherever you're from, like your family, they're going to stay, right? Like home is going to be home, but you can, and the Latinos, we carry a lot of pressure, right? So maybe want to help our families, right? And create, and break barriers, right? And so you can't help your family and others in your community if you can't help yourself first. So I think that's what you were alluding to, Sophia. So thank you just for your powerful story. Thank you, Hector, so much. And now enough of me and us. Let's bring it on to some folks who have questions. And first, we have Miss Morales from the High School World Cultures in the Bronx.
Hello.
And Ms. Morales is a teacher.
Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
So first of all, I would like to say that, Sophia, you are an inspiration for young generations like my students. I work in a high school, in an international high school in the Bronx. It's a high school for newcomers. I witnessed myself the great impact that the BUILD program makes on my students' lives. So I would like to ask you if you ever participated in a program like BUILD. Me gustaría traducirlo en español porque tengo alumnos que están aprendiendo inglés. Le acabo de preguntar a Sofía si alguna vez ha participado en un programa como el de BUILD. Gracias.
Yes. So yes, I was a part of many programs. So the first program was called HLOP, and it was a small community program. But with HLOP, it was the first time I traveled to Washington, D.C. without parents, and I was in high school. They taught us things about, like be proud of your name and your heritage, especially when you move into spaces where there aren't a lot of Latinos, because they recognize like we all kind of grow up together and then we're thrown out into this world and we resort to code switching. We change who we are. And so just saying your name as Sophia Hernandez in a space, were really important things. So that was kind of there. And then another program was a program very much like BUILD called Junior Achievement, where we created products and companies. And just for me, the biggest impact were the mentors, all of the executive level people that would come and talk to us, and they were Black and they were Latinos. And I was like, wow, like that's possible. So that was, that had a huge impact. And one of those mentors who knew me when I was 12 years old is one of my mentors still today. And she's in her 70s and we, talk almost every week. So these relationships are so important and they last a long time.
Thank you for letting me know this. I will share this experience with my students.
Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you so much, Ms. Morales. Now we have a question from another student also calling in from the Bronx representing today, Hermione Peralta. We can dance a little bit while we're waiting for them to come on.
I know. I loved hearing your background. I'm actually a terrible dancer.
I can.
No.
Did you just say you can attest to that, Hector?
Yes, of course.
Ouch.
I know.
Threw you under the bus, Sophia. You could have pulled all of it.
There's a name for the way I dance, and it's not a nice name. So.
You got to share it now.
He does
Sophia,
the Carlton dance, if you guys know
yeah,
from The Fresh Prince.
yeah. It was my go-to move in Spain. It was the only one I knew.
While we're waiting for that to come through, do you want to do any of the other questions?
Yeah, let's see. We have another one from another student. We have Arianji Vasquez, also from the Bronx. Bronx is representing today, the Boogie Down Bronx.
I love it.
All right, here we go. We got Hermione. Go ahead, Hermione.
Hi, Cindy said before, my name is Magda. I am from High School of Work Project. I actually a senior. And I am from Dominican Republic, first of all. And I want to ask you about, um, I can ask in Spanish because it's more easy for me.
Yeah.
So, la pregunta es, escuchando lo que dijo Sofía sobre su vida, me gustaría saber si ser latina, ay, me gustaría saber si al expresar su historia, ser latina hizo una diferencia. O si fue difícil siendo latina, como contar sus experiencias hacia otras personas que tal vez no sean latinos o no conozcan la cultura.
Yeah, so she's asking if being a Latina and going into spaces that aren't filled with people like you, if it's hard to kind of bring your whole self to those environments and tell your stories and kind of be yourself. So yes, it's hard. It's not easy because everyone else in the space kind of has a similar story and you're the one who's over here on your own. And it takes a lot of courage and you know, like when you do it, when you're brave enough to finally do it, sometimes it's embarrassing and you're shut out. Not everybody's accepting of it. But you can't stop there. You just have to keep being yourself. And this is what I meant about having a strong sense of worth. Like it's not easy. You get knocked down a lot. Like I've gone and cried in the bathroom at work from someone offending me or being humiliated. And you know, I just kept going, but I also learned how to navigate the system. So making sure when something like that happens that is offensive, that gets reported, or like it's not okay to act like that. And so you know, like you have to just continue to push your way through. And you know, I'll give you a very simple example. Like at work, in one of my roles, people used to play music on the speaker, and it was a shared speaker. And most of the white kids shared their music. Like they typically controlled the speaker. And I always encourage like people on my team or people that weren't necessarily into that type of music to play their own music. Like, why are we always listening to just one cohort groups of music? Like we need to bring like, why not play the salsa or the bachata? Who's to say that that is the only thing or that is the mainstream? And that's the problem. Like if we don't continue to be ourselves in these spaces, they're never going to change.
Thank you so much, Sophia, and thank you, Hermione, for your question. I think we have a lot of questions coming in now. We have another student as well. I think we're going to try to bring Arianji to the stage. And if not, yes. All right. Great.
Hi, my name is Angie, and I'm a senior student, and I'm from Dominican Republic. So the question I have is that what are the importance and benefits of being bilingual in your workforce?
Oh, Hector, I want you to answer that one actually.
I mean, huge benefits. So the role that I have today is a global one. So I work with people in Asia, in Europe, in Latin America, and guess what? It's a lot easier for me to form relationships and do business with people that speak Spanish. So it's been a huge benefit for me, and it's been, why I really value the study abroad in Spain to get better at reading and writing, and continuing to focus and really work on my Spanish. My parents are native speakers, and I grew up only speaking Spanish, but we quickly assimilate. And like Sophia was saying, we adapt to the American culture. But as a tool, keep that. It's such a valuable tool. It's what other folks wish they had, and we have it naturally. So continue to use that to your benefit. It's going to open doors for you.
Yeah, and I have a good friend who has a really amazing role at Apple, and the reason she's in this role is because she is bilingual. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for people who are proficient in Spanish and English. So definitely don't walk away from that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gracias, Arianji. Arianji, where are you from?
Dominican Republic.
Awesome. Thank you, Arianji. And the last two we're probably going to bring on stage is Alondra, also from the Bronx.
Bronx is representing.
Boogie down, Bronx. I feel so blessed that I was able, my parents really made sure that even after, you learn English in school, they make try to continue to learn Spanish, so that my mom will sit down and make me like read it, write it, and then say everything in Spanish. She's like, a ti no se te va a olvidar el español.
That's what my kids are doing with me and with their grandma as well. They have Spanish class.
It's powerful, right? Because I think the generations were forgetting that Spanish, and it's like it's such an important tool to be bilingual. Okay, well, while we're waiting for our student to come on in, let's go ahead and start with some questions for you all.
Okay.
The first one is, what would you recommend for someone who wants to go into business and works for, what would you recommend for someone who wants to go into business and works for a big company?
So what's my advice for someone who wants to be in business and work for a big company?
Yes.
I would study whatever the hell you want to study in college, because I think that that's your opportunity to really kind of explore kind of diverse careers, unless you specifically want to get into finance or economics or accounting, unless you really have that track. But the biggest kind of advice to going into business is to network and do as many internships as you can in college. I really think like the exposure to companies is invaluable, and you also make so many connections there. And if you do an amazing job and you impress, then there's going to be a job waiting for you after school anyway. Hector, feel free to kind of jump in with any additional.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky to join an internship program when I was 17, and I was able to have a summer internship all the way throughout my college career. And I was able to kind of see what different parts of SC Johnson were like and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So internships are a huge benefit. It allows you to see what it's like to be in business, and it allows that company to see what you perform like. It's kind of like an ability for both of you to see if you're a good fit. So internships are absolutely the best way to get that experience.
I agree.
Wonderful. Thank you both. We have now Alondra Vasquez joining us for a question.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Alondra Vasquez. I'm from the high school world quarters. So I am Dominican, and a question that I have is how to navigate a professional setting without losing your radical identity.
Cool. That's a really deep question. I think you have to have a strong sense of self. I think you have to not get discouraged when the non-inviting setting kind of tries to exclude you or make you feel bad for who you are, because that will happen. And you just have to keep going. And I think it's important, and I talked about this earlier, like you need to form a group. I like micro tribes. So you have one group of people like us that you can go to and say, here's what happened. How can I navigate this? A group of people that are just going to be your cheerleaders and kind of give you love when you need it. But you need to have like core groups of people to support you, because it's gonna happen. Like, I wish I could say it's not, but like this space is so unchanged and it's still so majority not like people like us, that you're going to continue to pave the way for people. So I'm doing my best, but you're still going to have to like chop down trees and make the road for yourself.
I think, Sophia, one of the things that I think why you're able to bring yourself to work is because you have confidence, because you know you're good at what you do. So for the students that are thinking about entering business, you need to master something and be valuable to the company, because once you do that, you're going to have confidence and you're going to be able to be yourself, because you know your stuff, you're adding value. So I think that is going to kind of increase the level of confidence in your ability to be yourself.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. So like if you're great at math, then lean in on math and that's your thing. And so when they criticize you about your public speaking skills, you'd be like, I don't care, I'm good at math. Like I don't care about the public speaking. That's not my thing. My thing is math. So yeah, know what you bring to the table.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be here.
Thanks for joining.
Gracias, Alondra. What a powerful question.
That was.
Moderating is not my thing, but I'm giving it a try. Okay, so let's see. Next question is from Miha Howard. Sorry, but can I ask, how do you both stay motivated through everything?
Someone asked me this when I was doing a speaking event, and when she stood up and asked this question, she was almost in tears because she just feels like this journey has been so hard and she had been knocked down so many times. Honestly, like, I don't know how I keep going. It's kind of just who I am. Again, like I grew up with a fighting spirit, so it's like it's just naturally what I do. But a lot of times I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for all of these students that we're talking to. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it to make, my grandparents proud. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, because then you get to a point where you're like, I'm doing this for everyone but myself. But I just I want to change things. And that's what keeps me going. But it's not easy. It is a hard journey. But I'm dedicated to the change.
Thank you, Sophia, for that. And thank you, Miha, for answering that, for submitting that question. I think we have room for one more question. If you're okay with that, Sophia and Hector?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So this is from Cassandra Hazelhurst. I hope I said the last name correctly. I'm a first-generation American. Going back to family expectations, how do you balance pursuing your passions when your parents have other plans in mind for your life?
Your parents are not going to live your life. You'll be really unhappy if you listen to your parents. I mean, when you're 18, you're old enough to make your own decisions. You have to live your life for yourself. And guess what? When you're true to yourself and you live the life that you follow the path that you want to follow, it benefits everyone. Like my dad didn't want me to study abroad in Spain. They didn't want me to move to Paris. They came to visit me. They left the United States for the first time and came to visit me in Paris, and then Turkey, and then Italy, and I got to expose my parents to Europe. Which, I mean, we weren't vacationing in Europe over the summers. We were driving to Texas and sometimes Mexico. So you following your own path is going to make your whole family better. You just have to be brave enough to say, thank you, but I'm going this way. Hector, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, it's tough, right? Because that's your support system. You don't want to upset anyone. I think my advice, maybe do it in small doses so that it doesn't, provide a big jolt to your family. But I agree. I mean, find your passion, find what you want to do, and don't let things like what other people expect of you hold you back. You'll look back at that and regret it later on. You'll wish you had taken that path. But I think do it smartly so that your family can come along and kind of join you as you do that.
I see a lot of questions about having a seat at the table. Can I just address that quickly? When you look at these spaces, the legal space, the finance space, really any space, it does feel discouraging, and it does feel like, how am I ever going to get there? I mean, I did it. I grew up poor on the south side of Chicago. Hector has a similar background, and we're both very successful. You do belong in these spaces, and little by little, I see it changing. And I see it changing actually at a much faster speed now. Yeah. So don't kind of restrict yourself from those spaces. You absolutely belong there. They need more diversity in these spaces. People are getting called out left and right. People are pulling their business from companies that don't have diverse representation. So you belong. Oh, that's my 3-year-old saying, Mama. You belong in these spaces. We're our own worst enemy. Don't convince yourself that you don't.
Thank you so much, Sophia. We have so many questions, and unfortunately, we don't have the time, but we're hoping, and I think you have some saludos from Familia de Tampico, Mexico.
Yeah, I do.
Really, your family's here from Mexico. This is incredible. But again, just wanted to thank, I work for Build NYC, but thanking Build, the people who really put this together today, and all of our audience who came in today, our students or teachers from all over. Hector, again, thank you so much for having this conversation with Sophia. And Sophia, just thank you for your realness and your honesty and transparency, and really kind of giving us that inspiration that some of us needed, or the inspiration that some folks needed today, and really understanding not just women, but the Latino culture as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
You want to leave us with any parting words, and then we'll pass it on to Shamika. So any last things to say?
Yeah, I mean, support programs like this, and they didn't ask me to say this, but you heard from my experience, like programs like this really helped me be who I am today. We need people to partner with students more and help navigate them. It's be an ally, be a champion. I've had so many of them in my life. I'm so grateful. So please participate in these programs, fund them, mentor. That's how you can make change if you really care about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia and Hector, for such an empowering and honest conversation. I was definitely moved a couple times. I'm like, I get it. And thank you for the shout out to Belize, my other heritage there. So thank you, Cindy, for that. And also thank you, Cindy, for sharing your story and for being vulnerable enough to share what your path has been. So really enjoyed that. And a very special thanks to our entire audience. If you haven't already, we invite you to be a part of our efforts to step up even more if you're already involved. So you should be getting a button soon. Like, click on that button that has popped up on your screen. You might not be able to see our faces completely anymore, but I invite you to click that button so you can sign up to volunteer, or better yet, get your company involved. We also invite you to make a donation, rally your community, or have your employer become one of our speaker series sponsors, or even a corporate partner like TikTok. This is such an important time in our nation, and we collectively have an opportunity to make the significant change that we definitely want to see in this country, and we will do that by bridging communities. So thank you all again for joining us. And again, I invite you to get involved in our efforts. We look forward to your involvement. Have a great evening, and stay tuned for the next Women's Bridging Community Speakers. care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Gracias.